Hey Aries, welcome back. Sorry I missed you guys last month. Just had a lot going on, a lot of changes going on that I had to deal with, and I just didn't have the energy to get the readings out there for you. But I'm back, and thanks for coming back. And I hope you had a really great October with the Aries full moon and everything, and that things are looking up for you in the coming month, and that everything's good. So I'm gonna do for you your October reading for your sun, moon, rising, or Venus signs. So if you have any planets in those aspects, this reading may be for you. Also, I think it's important to say that this is a general reading. So if you don't connect with something in here, it may just be that this reading is not for you. Sorry, I'm like fixing my hair. Typical Leo. I just want to say welcome back, and I'm back on it, and I hope that these readings give you something. And we'll just get right into it as per usual. I've meditated on your energy, I've pre-shuffled your cards, so we're not gonna kill any time here. And we'll just get right into it. So your overall energy for the month of November is the Two of Swords. So you have a decision to make. You are in a place of decision. You may not have enough information at this time to make that decision, and so you kind of have to let things unfold before you're able to see how you want to place yourself in it. Which side of the fence do you want to lay? Which table do you want to cut? Which knife goes down first? You can see here with the moon in the card that this card has an aspect of like waiting and letting things evolve in order to understand them more, to make a decision. So you're in a place of decision or indecision. So let's just see what's going on here. Cool, Aries. So moving into Scorpio season, you have here the Five of Wands, the Three of Wands, and the Three of Pentacles. So it may have been that the last month or so you were dealing with some, having to put your ideas out there and work on them with other people. There may have been some conflicts of interest. There may have been some pushing and shoving regarding whose stand is more important than the other, whose position is more important than the other. You've had to kind of take your ideas and put them out there and see if they even work with others. And because of that, and because of whatever kind of outcomes that you saw in that, you kind of took yourself maybe a bit out of that group situation, or like larger group situation, or maybe more of a social situation, and took yourself maybe on a more solitary journey, getting yourself maybe out of your comfort zone, taking yourself to somewhere where you're starting to see your dreams more clearly, and just like maybe taking a journey, or taking yourself out of what is familiar in order to attain what you desire. And I see that also relating to this. So maybe, although you moved out of this kind of larger social group, you maybe have been moving into a more, smaller group. Or it could just be that this is the decision you need to make. It's like, with the new developments you've been making, you took yourself out into the world, you've taken yourself out of your comfort zone, you're letting yourself explore your desires, and maybe just following your wits, your intuition, to see where that's taking you. And now you're kind of at this crossroads of like, okay, do I take what's going on with me and bring it out into the open, into a social place, and see how that works? Or do I take it in a more practical way, work on a smaller scale, take things one step at a time? So maybe that's actually, now that I really like think about it, I feel like that's more what's going on here. So, informing. We have here Aries. Underneath that, we have the King of Wands, the Emperor, which is you. This is this representative of Aries. So these are the first two major arcana in your reading. And we have the Empress. So we have the Emperor and the Empress in one reading, Taurus and Aries. So yeah, I mean, I think why you are interested in this kind of route of taking things into a social situation, letting your ideas bounce around with others, even if it creates kind of drama or conflict, is that you're looking to kind of step into, you're looking to sit in your position of power, sit in your position of authority, become a leader, let yourself be a person who has the energy to and the will to do things, to not necessarily act on them, but to be somebody who's more confident with how they want to do things. And it may be that you want to learn from this like interactions with others, how that can like benefit you, and how that can help you to become more of a confident leader in your position. Now, I think that also relates, and the reason why you're considering this kind of more difficult situation, this more kind of action-based group dynamic, is that like underneath, this will to kind of take yourself out there is a desire to strengthen your will, to strengthen your authority in yourself, to become more of a authoritative figure to yourself, or to just become more of the leader you feel like you were born to be, just even for yourself. Just to know that you have that confidence, you have that strength, you have that stability, that you can depend on yourself when you want to take things to the next level. Like the Emperor is clearly above the King. So maybe what you're thinking here is actually on kind of a practical level. It's like, in order to become the Emperor, maybe first you need to become the King. And they're both very fiery energies. It could be that you're not really sure how to face up to your own power. You're not really sure what it means to sit in your own power, and so that's why you're kind of going out there and you're testing the limits of what you're capable of. You're testing the limits of your desires. You're testing the limits of how you can bring things into yourself. And maybe you need to learn, like we have three very like royal cards underneath here. And like, I think maybe one of the reasons why you're inclined towards this position is just because it feels like the more practical step. It's like, okay, well, first I need to be able to understand how I can do things in a dynamic that is more on a people level, more on a scale that I'm comfortable with, in order to become more in my truth, in my power. Now, what I think is interesting also is that on the flip scale of that, you have this more feminine energy, this more receptive aspect to how you're planning to do things. It's like, on the one end, maybe, it could be because this is on the left, like maybe this is why I was thinking maybe this is something that's already happened, is because, narratively, this is in the past. But because I think this whole reading is about choosing two sides, choosing two ways to go to become what you're meant to be, like to live in your truth, to follow your destiny, is that, this has been more of the path you've taken in the past. And you kind of are more familiar with it. You can identify with it more because it feels like something you're used to, and you know how to work out those dynamics. You know how to like go out there and just shake things up a bit. But this other path is more, it takes a little bit more sensitivity, a little bit more receptivity, being open to working together with others in a closed environment, to building something from scratch, and not just being the dominant leader in this. Like, maybe sometimes to become a great leader, we also need to become a great servant, or not servant, but a great receiver of how others work too. And I think that the Empress really embodies this kind of like someone who's a great leader, but also willing to receive how things work in a natural sense. So like the Empress is very sensual and feeling based, as opposed to the Emperor, which is very like authoritative and thought based, so action based, assertive. And I think that the Empress has that aspect too, but she kind of waits to feel how things turn out, which I think relates a lot to the Two of Swords here. So, and the Empress's total creativity, total fluid fertility and receptivity, abundance. So it could be that the reason why you're considering this other option is because it's something that's not completely familiar to you. Like, it is because it's in the reading, so it is familiar to you, but it's not really related to how you've done things in the past. So it has a lot more to do with like maybe, and because this other option is a 3, and you're on this kind of like quest in the 3 of Wands, so you're on this journey to do things differently. You're considering this more strongly, I think, and because it's a major underneath it, I think that's reinforced, that you're considering this other option. Maybe it's time to build things together with others rather than to just shake them up. And it may be that the way that you do that is through your femininity, through your ability to nurture, to be receptive to the ideas of others, but also to how things work naturally, and just being like that kind of open flow for nature, and kind of seeing how relationships actually work rather than how do you work in relationships. Do you know what I mean? And that will that will take you closer to a more stable sense of self. So that's just how I'm reading it. But like, again, I think that whatever option you take, it's not going to be the right or wrong decision. It's just that one will be different than what you're used to, and it may be the decision that has more abundance to it, and more growth. Because even here I see, what the King of Wands is looking at here is the 7 of Swords. So, the 7 of Swords, it could be that you're just thinking of kind of taking what works for you and moving on. So it's not really a negative way of doing things, but maybe it's a way that you're used to. It's just like, okay, well, I put my things out there. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I got what I needed out of it, and now moving on. So, Aries, at the bottom of your reading, we have the 8 of Wands, the Knight of Swords, and the Emperor, the Justice card. So, it's an interesting dynamic. Somehow I still see the reading as being this, like, do this or do that. But at the same time, I see that the outcome of this reading, the kind of trend development, is something more narrative based. I think that, like, with the Knight riding into the 8 here, it's almost like he's riding into war here. It's like he's riding into these arrows coming at him. And it could be that, your impulse nature is to go in and do that direct action with the 8 of Wands. It's like to just ride in and cause a shitstorm and then move on. that's kind of what I feel like it's like. That's what I'm intuitively getting out of these two cards together, is just this impulse to like, I gotta get in there. But because maybe it is something that you're familiar with in the past, I have a feeling that the situation is different than the past. And so your instinct to just ride in there, it could lead to coming up to odds that are not manageable. And it may be that you're riding into something that you're not really ready for. And that may be why it's at the middle of the reading here, because, your impulse, that's, I'm seeing this, like the center here is like kind of who you're wanting to be, like who you're desiring to be, why you're on this quest for those desires to kind of manifest what you want out of life and how you want to do those things. And I think that the reason why the Knight of Swords here is because you want to take action on these things, and you want to like kind of see them done. And it's the only other swords card in the reading other than the overall energy. So in a way, I feel like you're struggling with that patience. You're struggling to like see how things evolve and to make a decision that's maybe more gonna work for you in the long run. And your impulse is to just like get in there and take direct action, get things done, move on, bing bang boom kind of thing. But then I see also on the other scale what you're kind of not able to see, or maybe what your impulse, like, and with the Emperor at the middle, there's a lot of, the Emperor in a way also represents this concept of the ego. So what you're consciously obsessing over, or what you believe your identity has to do with in terms of what you relate to your past and your past experiences, and what those define, you relate to those definitions of yourself. And so those are really like driving your impulses. But what you're not seeing is the flip side to things, is that maybe there's a middle road. Maybe with the Justice card, which completely relates here, it's another major arcana, it's Libra energy, which we're leaving Libra season. So, and this also has aspects of Libra in it, is that there is something to consider. There's something to receive in this situation. There's something to weigh out. And that your decision does not necessarily need to be made immediately. You can take your time with these things. And I think that that's reinforced also with the Empress here, just saying like, maybe it's about receiving how things are working out, feeling them out, allowing yourself to feel those feelings, and to kind of like really let those feelings go through you. And it may be that through that, you're able to make a decision based more on how the situation really is, rather than what you're used to, what you've done in the past. So this may be a chance for you to kind of seek equilibrium, to seek a solution to the situation that is different than what you've done in the past. And it may just be that you have to kind of bide your time before you make that action, before you can let loose the reins on your horse and allow the stampede to begin. And first you need to like really consider the situation from all sides, seek out the truth. But it may be that the truth comes to you in a way that you're not familiar with, which, like I said, has more to do with how things actually feel and how you feel about them, and like what is your inner self saying regarding the situation. And I think that if you allow those things to flow freely, you'll have a better chance of making a decision that you will feel is fair and justified. So however that has to do with, I feel like this has to do with your relation to a group dynamic of some kind. So yeah, that's your reading, Aries. Seems like, Try to do the opposite. I think that would really help you in this situation. Try to think about how you've dealt with these kinds of things in the past. Don't just don't just impulsively act on them. Consider what did and didn't work before, and really allow the situation to unfold rather than you be the one that controls that unfolding, or cuts the fold in half rather than actually see what it looks like once it's on. Like sometimes we can assume too much about a situation, and we just act on it later to realize that that the situation was different than what we perceived, and it may be that we ride into something that we're not prepared for. So cool, Aries. That's your reading for the month of November. Thanks as always for all your support, and I wish you guys the best in the coming month. If you want to check out any of the links below, like as always, there's you can book a reading with me. You can contact me in any way, and I thank you guys all for your generous support and donations. It's gone a very long way, so thank you. And so have a great November. Enjoy Scorpio season, and I'll see you guys next time. Keep coming back.